sent over some really fascinating articles and reports this week. It's all about how tech is just rapidly changing healthcare, isn't it?
It really is quite a transformation happening.
Yeah, we're seeing this incredible mix of, well, smart devices and something called software as a medical device, or SaMD. So for you listening, our goal in this deep dive is basically to pull out the key takeaways from these sources. We want to get a handle on how this digital shift is changing things for patients. You know, real-time data, treatments designed just for them, and maybe giving you more ownership over your health.
Absolutely, and your materials really drive home that potential. When we talk smart medical devices, it's more than just data collection, right?
Right, yeah.
They're embedding intelligence, medical expertise into the device. The aim is care that's more, well, proactive, personalized, and definitely more accessible.
Like a wearable that does more than just count steps.
Exactly. Imagine something actively monitoring key health signs and giving you actual useful feedback, not just raw numbers.
Okay, and then there's SaMD software as a medical device. This is where I think it gets really interesting. Because it's software doing a medical job all on its own, separate from any specific hardware. It is the device, essentially.
That's the crucial point. The International Medical Device Regulators Forum, the IMDRF, defines it just like that. Software for medical purposes, performing them without being part of a physical device.
That distinction matters, I guess.
It really does, because it means SaMD has its own medical function, its own risks, and needs its own specific regulatory look-in, which some of your sources definitely got into.
Okay, so we have these smart gadgets and this independent medical software. Let's dig into the smart devices first. What makes them so impactful? What core features did your sources highlight?
Connectivity was huge in your readings. Things like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, now 5G. They allow this constant flow of data.
Data going where?
Between the device, maybe your phone, cloud platforms, even directly into the healthcare system itself. This real-time transfer is just fundamental for remote monitoring. For telehealth, it supports more continuous care, not just visits every few months.
That continuous stream seems vital for catching problems early, doesn't it?
Definitely.
What else stood out as a key feature?
Interoperability. Specifically with electronic health records, EHRs, that came up a lot.
Making sure everything talks to each other.
Precisely. The ability for these smart devices to sync data smoothly with the clinical systems, that's vital. It creates that unified patient picture.
Which means?
Better coordination between doctors, specialists, and importantly, less chance of doing the same test twice or manually typing in data. That can be a real pain point, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, absolutely. Less duplication, better communication. That's a clear win.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing all this data, it's not just stored, it's analyzed.
That's the next big piece. Your sources really emphasize the growing role of data analytics and artificial intelligence, AI. These let the devices go beyond just recording stuff. They identify patterns, predict potential health issues using algorithms.
So, smarter analysis.
Yeah, leading to things like early alerts, better risk assessment, and insights that help tailor treatments just for you. It's almost like having a personalized early warning system.
That's a powerful concept.
Yeah.
And practically speaking, for people to actually use these, they need to be easy, right? User-friendly.
Absolutely critical. Portability and intuitive interfaces are key. The trend is definitely towards smaller, wearable designs you can use day-to-day without hassle.
And the apps.
The apps and dashboards that come with them need to be simple. Easy for patients to understand, easy for doctors to quickly see the important information.
Okay, features covered. Now, based on your sources, give us some concrete examples. Where are these smart medical devices actually being used today?
Automated insulin delivery systems, aid systems, they were mentioned quite a bit.
How do they work?
They basically link a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM, with an insulin pump. The system then automatically adjusts the insulin dose based on the real-time sugar levels.
Wow. Getting some of the manual work out of it.
A lot of it. It can significantly improve blood sugar control and honestly just reduce the daily burden for people with diabetes.
Sounds life-changing for many. What's another example?
Wearable ECG monitors came up frequently too. They continuously record your heart rhythm.
Looking for problems like
irregularities like atrial fibrillation or AFib. Catching conditions like that early can be absolutely critical in preventing something more serious like a stroke.
So it's proactive heart monitoring. Any other areas?
Digital inhalers were also discussed.
What's digital about an inhaler?
They track usage not just when you use it, but also things like your technique and how well you're sticking to the schedule.
Ah, so it's about optimizing treatment.
Exactly. That data helps patients and doctors manage respiratory conditions much more effectively.
Makes sense. One more example from your reading.
Connected glucose meters. Different from the aid systems, these are meters that automatically log your blood sugar readings and send them to an app or the cloud.
So no more manual logbooks.
Pretty much. It simplifies tracking for the patient and lets the care team see trends remotely, maybe step in if levels look off.
Okay, so smart devices are actively collecting, sharing data to improve managing conditions. Now let's pivot to SaMD. You mentioned that IMDRF definition, it's independent medical function. What kinds of functions are we talking about based on the sources?
Your materials showed a pretty wide range. SaMD can be involved in diagnosis, suggesting treatment paths, even tracking how a disease is progressing.
And it does this just through software.
Right. The core medical function comes from the algorithms, the data analysis within the software itself. It doesn't need specific hardware to do its main job.
And these are often delivered via apps or online platforms.
Yeah, cloud-based systems, mobile apps, those are very common, which has the benefit of being scalable and often more cost-effective to roll out.
Got it. So just like the devices, can we look at some real-world SaMD examples that popped up in your reading?
Definitely. Several sources mentioned apps using smartwatch data, like heart rate data, combined with AI to flag potential atrial fibrillation.
Using a regular smartwatch.
Exactly. It's a great example of SaMD leveraging consumer tech for early detection, potentially preventing strokes. That's a big deal.
Turning an everyday gadget into a diagnostic tool. Yeah, that's quite a shift. Another example that grabbed you.
AI for radiology image analysis. That was mentioned a lot as being really transformative.
How does that work?
These SaMD platforms analyze medical images, X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, and they help radiologists spot things like tumors, fractures, maybe pneumonia, often with impressive speed and accuracy.
So it's like an AI assistant for the radiologist.
Kind of, yeah. It can boost efficiency, potentially catch things that might be missed, reduce errors.
Makes sense. What about uses beyond diagnosis?
Your sources also covered cognitive therapy apps, often using principles from cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT.
Therapy through an app.
Yeah. These SaMD apps can deliver therapy sessions, help you track your mood, give you interactive exercises, provide feedback, all on your smartphone. It makes mental health support much more accessible for a lot of people.
Increasing access to mental health care. That feels really important. Now, your materials also talked about how these two things, smart devices and SaMD, often work together. How does that partnership boost their impact?
Well, the synergy there is really powerful. It creates this ecosystem. The smart devices are like the data collectors.
Gathering the raw info.
Right, constantly collecting physiological data, heart rate, glucose, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then the SaMD platforms take that raw data and apply the smarts, the analytics, AI, machine learning, to make sense of it.
So device gathers, software interprets.
Precisely. And that interpretation can then feed back, maybe adjusting how the device works or providing insights for the patient or doctor. It creates this kind of closed-loop system for care that's personalized, proactive, and continuous.
Can you give an example of this interplay highlighted in the sources?
Chronic conditions like diabetes and hypertension were common examples. You might have a smart wearable, like a CGM or a blood pressure cuff.
Collecting the data.
Collecting real-time data. That data gets fed into a SaMD mobile app. The app then analyzes it, provides personalized feedback, maybe flags potential issues, and could even help guide medication changes, obviously in consultation with a doctor.
So the wearable gets the stream, the app adds the intelligence. Makes sense. Another example.
Implantable cardiac devices, pacemakers, defibrillators were often paired with remote monitoring software in your readings.
How does that work?
The smart implant collects data on how it's functioning and on the patient's heart activity. That info is sent to a SaMD platform where cardiologists can monitor patients remotely.
Letting them keep an eye on things without needing constant office visits?
Exactly. Allows for continuous oversight, proactive intervention if something looks off.
Okay, and one more example of this device-software combo making a difference.
Some sources mentioned AI-powered SaMD platforms analyzing data from various home diagnostics, maybe connected blood pressure monitors, smart scales, things like that.
What's the goal here?
By spotting subtle changes or early warning signs in that combined data, the SaMD can generate alerts for the user and their doctor, potentially leading to earlier diagnosis and treatment for all sorts of conditions.
Sounds like this collaboration is really key to shifting towards more preventative healthcare. Now, obviously, with all this sensitive health data flying around and software making medical judgments, The regulations must be a huge piece of this, right? Your sources certainly indicated
Oh, absolutely critical. Your materials really stressed the huge effort by regulatory bodies globally to adapt their rules. They need to ensure these digital health tools are safe, effective, and that there's accountability.
Which regulators came up most often in your reading?
Well, the FDA in the US was frequently mentioned, of course. They operate under medical device regulations using a risk-based approach for classification and approval.
And in Europe?
The EMA, the European Medicines Agency, and their specific regulations, the MDR and IVDR, these explicitly cover standalone software and connected devices, so there were key topics too.
Any others mentioned?
The UK's MHRA, which is navigating post-Brexit regulations, was noted, and Australia's TGA also came up. They oversee software-based medical devices too and require compliance.
You mentioned a risk-based system. How does that generally work for these digital tools?
Typically, yeah, they categorize devices and software into classes based on potential risk to the patient.
Like low risk, high risk?
Exactly. Class 1 is usually low risk, maybe general wellness apps. Class 2 is moderate risk, often including diagnostic software. And Class 3 is for high-risk stuff, like AI tools that directly influence treatment choices.
And the class determines how strict the rules are.
Precisely. The higher the risk, the more stringent the requirements for things like pre-market approval, ongoing post-market surveillance, and the amount of clinical evidence needed to prove it's safe and actually works before it hits the market.
So there's definitely a framework trying to ensure these tools are reliable.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. What about the benefits? What did your sources say were the key advantages for patients and for doctors from these smart technologies?
For patients, a really big one was access to their own real-time health data. That empowers people, right? Gives them more self-awareness, helps them engage more actively in their health.
What else for patients?
Personalized treatment recommendations based on their data, not just general guidelines. Plus, features like reminders or interactive bits and apps were noted as helping people actually stick to their therapies better.
So fostering a more active patient role. And for the clinicians, the providers.
Several benefits there, too. AI analysis can potentially improve diagnostic accuracy. Remote monitoring makes tracking patients more efficient, and just having access to more complete real-time data helps them make better, more timely clinical decisions.
Better data, better insights, maybe smoother workflows. Sounds good, but
Yeah.
there have to be downsides or challenges, right? Did your sources talk about limitations? Oh yeah, definitely. Challenges came up consistently. Data privacy and cybersecurity were right at the top.
Unsurprisingly.
Absolutely. Ensuring compliance with rules like HIPAA here or GDPR in Europe, and just fundamentally protecting sensitive health data from breaches, that's paramount.
Non-negotiable, really. What other hurdles were mentioned?
Interoperability keeps being a big one. The difficulty in getting data to flow smoothly between different devices, different SaMD platforms, and the existing EHR systems. Lack of standard formats is still a major roadblock.
Yeah, it seems like we're always talking about systems not talking to each other in healthcare tech. Anything else?
User adoption, and related to that, digital literacy. Not all clinicians are comfortable adopting new digital tools. And some patients, maybe older adults or those less tech-savvy, might struggle to use them effectively.
So making them truly user-friendly and accessible for everyone is key.
Crucial for widespread, equitable use. You don't want to widen health disparities.
Good point. Okay, let's zoom in on AI and machine learning within SaMD specifically. That was a strong theme in your materials.
It really was. Your sources position AI as a major, maybe the major driver of innovation in SaMD right now.
How so?
It's being used to make clinical decisions faster and hopefully more accurate. Sophisticated algorithms can help with diagnosis, picking the right treatment, predicting risks.
So AI is basically turbocharging the software's medical capabilities. Can you share a couple of specific examples of AI in SaMD from your reading?
Sure. Several articles mention AI tools for detecting diabetic retinopathy early. They automatically analyze images of the retina,
And the benefit.
potentially catching this sight-threatening condition much earlier, allowing for timely treatment and better outcomes. That's a huge win for preventative care.
Definitely. What's another standout example?
Predictive analytics using AI came up regarding hospital readmissions.
How does that work?
By analyzing lots of different patient data points, these AI systems can help hospitals identify patients who are at high risk of bouncing back after discharge. This allows them to, intervene proactively, maybe with extra support, to try and prevent that readmission.
Using AI to anticipate needs and manage resources better. Okay, one more AI example.
Virtual health assistants were discussed. often powered by AI.
What do they do?
They're tools for managing chronic conditions day to day. They can give medication reminders, help track symptoms, even offer personalized tips or recommendations based on the data they collect.
Like an AI coach for managing your health long term. Now, another big theme, especially lately, was telehealth and remote patient monitoring, RPM. How does SaMD fit into that picture?
Your sources made it really clear. SaMD is a fundamental enabler for both telehealth and RPM. It's not just the smart devices collecting data remotely.
Right.
It's the SaMD platforms that provide the infrastructure to monitor vital signs from afar, analyze that incoming data, and crucially facilitate the communication between patients and their doctors.
So SaMD is the intelligence and the connection hub for remote care.
You could put it that way, yeah. It supports video consultations, remote check-ins, continuous monitoring, all of which can potentially reduce hospital stays, cut down on ER visits, and just offer more convenience.
Really changing the whole delivery model, and we've danced around it. But that issue of interoperability with EHRs, it kept cropping up in your sources. Why is that seamless integration considered so vital?
Your materials hammered this point home. Interoperability is the foundation for a truly connected healthcare system. Without it, you just have data silos.
So it allows the data to actually flow.
Smoothly and securely, yes. Between the smart devices, the SaMD apps, and the central patient record in the EHR.
And the practical benefits of that flow.
You get a complete, up-to-date picture of the patient's health. That's essential for accurate diagnosis, effective treatment planning. Plus, it cuts down on errors from manual data entry and makes workflows more efficient for clinicians. They get the info they need when they need it.
A single source of truth leading to safer, better care. Now, underpinning all this data work, your sources mentioned cloud and edge computing. How do they fit in?
Your reading highlighted the cloud as providing the essential backbone. You need scalable infrastructure to store and process the sheer volume of data these devices and SaMD generate.
For storage and big analysis.
Exactly. Centralized data management, better security controls, and the raw computing power needed for those complex AI algorithms.
As the cloud is the powerhouse. What about edge computing?
Edge computing came up too. That's where some data processing happens closer to the source, on or near the smart device itself.
How do we do that?
It enables real-time analytics with very low delay or latency. That's critical for time-sensitive stuff like continuously monitoring vital signs where you might need an immediate alert if something goes wrong.
Processing closer to the patient for faster reaction. Got it. Now, another exciting area your sources explored was personalized medicine. How are these smart techs helping tailor treatments?
Your reading really underscored this. Smart devices plus AI-driven SaMD allow for this incredibly detailed understanding of an individual's health. Continuous data collection, sophisticated analysis, it paints a unique picture.
Leading to customized treatments.
Exactly. Moving away from one-size-fits-all, customizing strategies based on your specific physiology, your responses to treatment.
Can you give some examples from the sources where this personalization is actually happening?
Precision oncology was one. Using AI to analyze a patient's genetic profile alongside clinical data to pinpoint the most effective, targeted cancer therapy for them.
Highly specific cancer treatment. What else?
Behavioral health came up again. AI-powered apps that can personalize therapy content, maybe adjust the pacing based on your reported mood trends or progress through exercises.
Adapting mental health support in real time.
And cardiology, too. Smart wearables monitoring vital signs could inform dynamic, real-time adjustments to medication dosages guided by the data.
Tailoring meds based on continuous feedback. It really is a shift. Now, your materials probably named some names. Who are the key companies pushing this innovation forward?
Yeah, a mix of big, established players and newer focused startups. Your sources mention companies like Philips Healthcare, Medtronic, Abbott Labs, even Apple with their increasing health integration.
And the more specialized companies.
Names like AliveCor, known for their mobile ECG tech, and Omada Health, focused on digital chronic care management, were highlighted as developing really cutting-edge SaMD solutions.
A busy space, it sounds like. Okay, finally, looking ahead, what did your sources suggest about the future? What trends or emerging innovations stood out?
Well, the overall trend is clear. A growing role for AI diagnostic platforms, aiming for even better accuracy and efficiency.
Smarter diagnostics still evolving.
Definitely. Also, the idea of smart autonomous implants. Devices inside the body that can process data and potentially respond to physiological changes in real time, right there locally.
Wow, implants that think for themselves almost.
It's heading that way. And on a bigger scale, predictive population health analytics was another key theme. Using big data, machine learning across populations to predict disease outbreaks, allocate resources better, improve public health.
So intelligence working at the individual level and the population level, it really feels like we're moving towards a fundamentally smarter, more proactive healthcare system.
Absolutely. That convergence of AI, the Internet of Things, connected devices, machine learning, it's driving this shift, as your source is detailed. A shift towards patient-centered care that promises to be, well, faster, more efficient, and hopefully more accessible too.
It is fascinating. Quicker diagnosis, truly personalized treatments, real-time support. The potential these technologies offer is just immense.
It really is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive based on the materials you shared, here's something to think about. As these smart medical devices and SaMD become even more woven into the fabric of our lives, how will our own understanding of health and maybe even the relationship we have with technology and our caregivers continue to change? It's a big question. One Your Source is definitely.
Thank you, viewers, for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your colleagues. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking that subscribe button below, so you never miss out on valuable insights. I'm Brian Edmonds, signing off. See you in the next one.